So now we're on Daf Tesvav Beis, and we're learning a brisa of Bar Kapara. Demus Diukno Nasati Bohem. We're talking about the Tzelem Elokim. Ubavanoseim Hafachtia. As a result of their sins, I have turned it upside down. And therefore, Kfu Mitosehem Oleha. That upon the death of a close relative, which means the bittul of Tzelem Elokim, obviously after death, the face looks a lot different. And therefore, that bittul of Tzelem Elokim has to express itself in turning over the beds. Now, what does it have to do with turning over the beds? So there are a couple of different interpretations here. One is that the bed the overturning of the bed symbolized the overturning of the greatness of man, because in the old days, in ancient times, the bed was used for both sitting and sleeping, and when a person is his most at ease. But I like the second shot better, that the bed was chosen because it serves as an intermediary in the creation of a new life through cohabitation that takes place in the bed. So basically, death is symbolized by overturning the bed, and there's no Tzelem Elokim.
Mm-hmm.
Our minig is to cover the mirrors.
Right.
Menuda umitzora, mayim b'kfiyas hamita. Teku. No answer. So again, if you take a look back at our chart, we have here overturning the bed. Because keep in mind, the last three on the chart are categories of kum v'aseh, whether it's hatifas harash, whether it's kfiyas hamita, or whether it's kriya. And in the case of menuda, as far as overturning the bed, both menuda and mitzora are unresolved. Take. You see, because menuda and mitzora have nothing to do with really the bittul of Tzelem Elokim. I don't even know why the Gemara thinks that kfiyas hamita should apply in those cases. Avel aser b'asiyas malacha. How do we know that an avel is enjoined from doing malacha during the 7 days of avelus t'chsiv? Because the pasuk says in Amos, this part of it, Tochacha, v'afachti chagechem le'evel. Your chag will be like an avel. So we have an equation between the chag and avelus. Ma chag aser b'malacha, af avel aser b'malacha. Menuda ma'u b'asiyas malacha is a menuda likewise enjoined from engaging in work. Omer of Huna, Omer of Yosef Tashma, and again we're going to have the same discussion back and forth. Sha'amru aser b'asiyas malacha lo amru el biyom. Aval b'layla mutar, v'chein atabotze b'menuda u'ba'avel. So we're talking now about a tainis tzibra. During a tainis tzibra, there's an iser malacha, but it's only during the day and not at night. And the same halacha applies to menuda and avel. So we see that a menuda is asur be'asiyas malacha. My Gemara says lava kulu. Don't we assume that when it says in the brisa, Kimenuda b'menuda v'avel, v'chein b'menuda v'avel akulo, it's referring to all the dinim discussed in the brisa, including the enjoining from work. So according to the brisa, menuda is enjoined from doing work. Lo, asha'ara. We had this word asha'ara before, and he says that it might refer to atifas harosh, but not to isa malach. Tashma menuda shona v'shonim lo. Right? He's allowed to learn and he's allowed to teach. And his karm lo. He could be hired and he could hire others. Shmamida. We see that he's allowed to work because he's allowed to be hired. So the final conclusion then is that a menuda is allowed to work. Let's just see if we have that checked off in our working. Menuda is permitted. What about a mitzora? Mitzora, ma'u b'asiyas malacha teku, it's unresolved. Again, this is another reflection of the fact that a mitzora is more chamor than a menuda. Avel aser b'chita, How do we know that an oval is enjoined from bathing? Tichsiv al tasuchi shemen, to not anoint yourself with oil. That was the pasuk that we had before when Yoav was trying to get this woman to look like an ovel. Is rechitza b'chlal sicha. We have a principle that rechita is another form of sicha. In the case of sicha, it goes into the body. In the case of rechitza, it remains outside the body, but they're both considered one isur. So therefore, an ovel is also rechitza. Menuda ma'u b'mechitza is berechitza, is a menuda enjoined from bathing. Just 1 second. Yeah. Omer of Yosef, Toshma, Sha'amru Asu Berechitza, La'amru called Gufo. He's not allowed to immerse his entire body in water. Upon of Yodav Raglav, he's only washing his face, his hands, and his feet, then mutter. So it seems almost explicitly from this brisa that a menuda is also berechita. So the Gemara says, "My lava kululo ashara." It's not referring to the Easter bathing, but rather the other practices that apply to a tainus sibur. And again, he's talking about atifas harosh. Mitzora, ma'u berechitza teku. Again, if we check out our fabulous chart over here, and he's talking about bathing, an ovel is forbidden, a menuda is permitted, and a mitzora is unresolved, again reflecting the chumrah of mitzora over menuda. Ovel also benilas a sandal. Ovel is enjoined from wearing shoes. Midakamale rachmana liyechezkan alecha sim tasim raglecha, wear your shoes. Michal de kuliyalma, a classic mourner, is enjoined from wearing shoes. Menuda ma'u benilas a sandal. Amarav Yosef Tashma, we learned in a brayse that we quoted earlier, Kisha Amru Asu b'netilas hasandal lo Amru ela be'ir. Only when you enter into the city, you have to take off your shoes. Aval b'derech, when you're on the road traveling from one city to the other outside the city, then you're allowed mutter to wear shoes. Ha ketzad yatzal derech noah. When he goes out of the city, on a trip, on a travel, he puts on his shoes. Nichlas leir, he comes back into the city. Choletz, he takes off his shoes. Menuda uba my life akulu. So all the laws that are mentioned in this brisa with regard to a Titus Tzibur, including the Isser of Ne'ilas HaSandal, apply to Menuda and to Avel. Lo, Asha'ara. It's not referring to wearing shoes. Mitzora ma'u b'nilas hasandal take. So again, as far as nilas hasandal wearing shoes, we have two unresolved questions in Menuda and in Mitzora. Ovel asu tashamita l'tziv vayinachem David bat sheva ishto vayovo leo. In other words, after the period of Avelus for the loss of the son had terminated, then he had an intimate relation with her. Mechlal, we can derive from this a meikara, meaning during the Avelus itself, also, Menuda ma'u b'tash shamita, Amar Rav Yosef Toshmach, Kol osam shanim shal Yisrael b'midbar, Menudim hayu. Right, they were excommunicated by Shamayim during the years of the Midbar, following the Chet HaEgel, the Shimshu Mitosem, and yet we know they had children during the time of the Midbar. They must have had intimate relations. And now, Amalei Abai, listen to this. Abai says the exact opposite of what he said until now. Dilma Menudel Shamayim Shiny to kill. Maybe in the case of Menudel Shamayim, we could be more lenient and we could allow Tashmish Shamita. But in the case of a classic Menudel Yidei Bezdin, there is an Isur of Tashmish Shamita. So Gemara says, Kiel v'amer chamor. Over and over again, Abai said that Menuda Shmai is more chamor. The Gemara answers, Sipuke Masafkele. Abai was actually vacillating back and forth. Zil hacha, komad chile. Zil hacha, komad chile. So whatever argument you bring from a case of Menudel Shamayim, he'll always reject that argument because he doesn't know. Maybe Menudel Shamayim is more chomer, maybe Menudel Shamayim is more kal. Mitzora Mao B'Tashvish Amita. Tashmai Desanya, we learned in the Bryce of Yashav Michutzli Olo. Olo is always an allusion to his wife. So it means that he has to dwell outside his tent. So it's about as explicit as you can get that a mitzora is enjoined from Tashish Hamita. Shmamina, we come to the conclusion that a mitzora is enjoined from Tashish Hamita, but it also says menuda. It doesn't say she asur with a shin. Sheyehe menuda ka'avil. But b'mili achronisa the asur v'tashamita, and in the case of a mitzora, he's asur v'tashamita, but that doesn't prove anything about menuda. So if we go back to our chart, marital relations is an avil is forbidden, and a mitzora is forbidden, and a menuda is teku, is unresolved. So again, we see that mitzora is more chomer than menuda as far as the Isur Tashish Hamita is concerned. Avil eino mishalech karbanosov. When a person is avil, he cannot send a carbon with a shliach to the Beis Hamikdash. The Sanya of Shimon Omer shlomit. When can you bring a carbon? That's only shlomit. Bisman shehu sholeh, when he's in a state of simcha. The lo bisman shehu onen, but not in a state of mourning. Menuda ma'u shishaleh karbonosov. The Beis Hamikdash, can he send his karbonos with a shliach to the mikdash? Rav Yosef Tashma kol osem chonim chol Yisrael b'midbar menudim hayu v'shilchu karbonoseyah. During these years that Bnei Yisrael were in the Midbar, they were menudim, and yet they sent their karbonos. You see that menudim is allowed to send this carbon. Amar le'abaye v'dilma menudim shemaim chani tekil. Maybe we're more lenient in the case of menudim shemayim, but in a real classic menudim bebezdin, he's not allowed to send his karbonos to the Beis Hamikdash. Kil v'amet chomer. You yourself, Abaye, always said is chomer. Sepukle mesafkile umadchile, and Abaye is vacillating back and forth about the status of Menudel Shamayim, whether it's more chomer or more kal. Mitzora ma'ushi yishlach karbonosov. Can a mitzora send his karbonos with an agent? Toshma desanya v'achrei taraso achar prishaso min ames shivas yomim yispru lo elu shivas yimei sfiro ubeyom bo'o el hakodesh el hachotza pnimis l'shoris hakodesh Yakriv Karbonosov. And here on the top of Daf Tezayin, it says Zu Asiris Ha'efa Shalom Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Bebo Yakriv, Bisman Sheroy Labia Roy Lahakriv, Bisman Shena Roy Labia, Eno Roy Lahakriv. You see that a mitzora who's not allowed to enter into the Beis Hamikdash cannot send his karbonos with a shliach. And again, if we check our famous chart over here, we have sending sacrifices both in Avel and in Mitzvah it's forbidden, but in the case of Menuda, it's unreasonable. So this is where we're going to stop for today. Thank you so much. And if I don't see you before Shabbos, have a Shabbat Shalom.
Yes, you as well. Stay dry. Thank you.
Thank you.